The lobby of the towering glass building seemed far too big for a little girl. She stood there in her worn shoes, clutching a small jewelry box to her chest like it held her entire heart. Lifting her chin bravely, she whispered to the receptionist, then louder when they didn't listen. "Please, can you give this to my mummy? It's very important." What no one in that cold, polished office knew, not even the powerful CEO upstairs, was that this tiny gift would open wounds, reveal truths, and unlock a love story none of them expected. Hello, family. If you're ready for the full story, make sure you hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Tomorrow, I've got another story that will blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now let's dive in. The lobby doors swished open with a rush of air-conditioned coldness that smelled faintly of polish and paper. The towering building glittered against the morning sun, glass walls reflecting a city already buzzing with life. Inside, the marble floor was so shiny it looked like a sheet of ice, and people moved briskly with coffee cups and folders, their shoes clicking like metronomes. In the middle of all that movement, a little girl stood almost frozen. Her braids, tied with faded ribbons, framed a round face that tried to look brave, but carried the weight of something far too big for her small shoulders. Her school shoes were scuffed, her socks slipping, and her hands clutched a jewelry box tightly against her chest. She whispered to herself, as though reminding her heart to stay steady. "It's very important, just give it to Mummy. Don't be scared." The receptionist barely glanced at her at first, distracted by phones, emails, and a line of impatient adults. The girl stretched up on her tiptoes, voice cracking but determined. "Please, can you give this to my mummy? She works here." The receptionist frowned, softening slightly but still busy. "Sweetheart, this is a workplace. Do you know your mummy's department?" The girl's lips quivered. "She types, she stays late. Her name's Alana." The jewelry box slipped a little in her grip, and she hugged it tighter, as though letting go would mean losing more than just a box. Upstairs, in a corner office lined with glass and steel, the CEO signed his name across another document. His world was precision, golden cufflinks catching the light, papers stacked perfectly, a city skyline stretched out beneath him like conquered territory. Yet, for all the power surrounding him, his eyes were hollow. His assistant hovered at the doorway. "Sir, the conference call is ready. Tell them to wait 5 minutes," he muttered without looking up. His pen moved swiftly, but his thoughts had drifted. This morning felt heavy, though he couldn't explain why. Success had filled his pockets, but not the silence that greeted him at home each night. He was a man who had everything and nothing. Downstairs, the girl's courage faltered as security noticed her lingering by the desk. "You can't be here, kiddo," one of them said gently though firm. Her small voice rose with urgency. "No, please. Can you give this to Mummy? It's very important. Please." The jewelry box, scratched on the edges but carefully polished by her little hands, caught the receptionist's eye. Something about the way the child held it, the raw desperation, the trembling lip, made her hesitate. A man in a tailored suit, passing by with his phone pressed to his ear, muttered, "Whose kid is this? Someone should take her out before she makes a scene." But the girl didn't move. Her eyes, wide and glistening, stared up at adults too busy to understand. At that same moment, the CEO pressed the elevator button, heading down for a quick break before his call. He stepped into the lobby with his usual presence, tall, crisp, untouchable. People straightened when they saw him, whispers trailing like shadows. And there she was, a small figure in a sea of marble and metal. A child gripping a jewelry box with the kind of fierceness only love or desperation could fuel. For reasons he couldn't name, he slowed his steps. Her voice rang out again, cracking with determination. "Please, can you give this to my mummy? It's very important." Something inside him paused. The phrase, so ordinary, pressed on his chest like a weight. He found himself staring at the tiny box, at the girl's hopeful eyes, at the innocence that felt like it didn't belong in his world. "Who does she belong to?" he asked quietly, his tone more curious than cold. "Her mother works here," the receptionist said nervously. "We're trying to sort it out." The CEO's gaze lingered on the girl, and for a fleeting second, something flickered across his face, something softer than anyone in that building had ever seen. The girl noticed him watching. She tilted her head, clutching the jewelry box tighter. "You look important," she said softly, as though reading his title not from his suit, but from the way the room bent around him. He blinked, caught off guard. Few dared speak to him so directly, let alone a child. "What's in the box?" he asked, his voice lower now. Her eyes widened protectively. "It's for Mummy, not for you." For the first time in years, he almost smiled. And so, in a lobby of glass and whispers, two worlds touched. A little girl with a secret gift and a CEO with an unseen emptiness stood face to face, neither knowing this moment would change everything. If you were this little girl, would you have had the courage to walk into such a place all alone? Or would fear have held you back? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. And while you're sharing, don't forget, every story we tell here comes with a heartbeat. If you're feeling it already, hit that subscribe button, because this journey is only just beginning. The jewelry box sat between her small hands like a secret the world wasn't ready to hear. She wouldn't let it go, no matter how many adults towered over her, no matter how many stern voices tried to move her along. "It's very important," she said again, softer now, but with the stubbornness of someone who knew her mission mattered. The CEO stood a few feet away, watching her. His people, his assistants, his staff, even the receptionist, waited for him to wave his hand, dismiss her like all other interruptions. That was the rhythm of this building. Problems were solved with a gesture. People were removed quietly. Nothing lingered. But he didn't gesture. He didn't move. For a man who prided himself on efficiency, the pause felt strange. Why couldn't he look away from the small box, or from the little girl's hands trembling, as though she carried the weight of the world? "Sir," his assistant whispered carefully. "Shall I call someone to?" "No," his voice came sharper than intended. Then quieter, controlled. "Bring her to my office." The room stilled. People exchanged glances. No one questioned him, but the decision cracked the glassy routine of the lobby. The girl blinked at him, then at the receptionist, unsure if she had done something wrong. Her little fingers traced the jewelry box's corner as she whispered, "But it's for Mummy." The CEO crouched slightly, his gaze level with hers. "And where does your mummy work?" "Upstairs," she said, her voice steadying. "She types letters and stays late. Her name's Alana." His chest tightened at the name, though he didn't know why. He rose slowly, clearing his throat, his face unreadable again. "Come with me." The walk to the elevator was silent, but charged. His polished shoes clicked steadily against marble. Her scuffed ones shuffled to keep up. She hugged the jewelry box tight against her chest, as if afraid someone might steal it. Inside the elevator, the mirrored walls caught their reflections. He looked like a man carved from stone. Expensive suit, sharp jaw, no room for softness. Beside him, she looked impossibly small, the box pressed so close it seemed like part of her heartbeat. He cleared his throat. "Do you always bring gifts to your mother at work?" She shook her head. "No, only today, because she needs this. She doesn't know it yet, but she needs it." There was something in her tone, a child's certainty that felt heavier than logic. He studied her reflection in the mirror. Innocence, yes, but also something fierce, almost protective. "What's in the box?" he asked again, curious despite himself. Her lips pressed together stubbornly. "It's for Mummy. Not for you." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost like a forgotten smile. The elevator chimed. They stepped into his office. Glass walls, leather chairs, a desk that looked more like an altar than furniture. The city stretched out beyond the windows, but the girl ignored it. Her eyes darted around, searching for her mother. "She's not here," he said gently, surprising even himself with the softness in his tone. "Sit." She perched on the edge of the chair, legs dangling, the jewelry box still clutched like treasure. Minutes passed. He returned to his desk, pretending to skim a file, though his eyes kept flicking back to her. Something about her presence unsettled him, like a note struck off key, echoing long after it should fade. Finally, he asked, "Why give her this gift at work? Why not wait until home?" Her answer came quickly, as though she had practiced it. "Because she's tired at home. She forgets to smile. If I give it to her here, maybe she'll remember." His pen stilled in his hand. Those words, simple, unpolished, cut sharper than any boardroom argument. There was a knock at the door. His assistant peeked in, carrying tea and a tray. She hesitated, eyes flicking between them, then set it down quickly. The girl leaned forward curiously, still hugging the box. "Do you always get tea brought to you?" "Yes," he said. "Doesn't it taste lonely?" she asked, tilting her head. He froze, his hand tightening on the pen. The question was innocent, but it landed like a stone in a still pond. For a moment, he couldn't find words. She looked down at the box in her lap. "My mummy says tea tastes better when someone else makes it. That's why I make it for her sometimes." Something shifted in the room then. Not much. Just enough. He set his pen aside. "Show me the box." Her arms tightened protectively. "It's not yours. I'm not taking it. I just want to see." She studied him carefully, as if deciding whether to trust the man everyone else in the building seemed to fear. Then slowly, she lifted the jewelry box and placed it on the edge of his desk. The CEO reached forward, fingers brushing the lid. His hands were steady in meetings, signing contracts worth millions. But now, inexplicably, his fingers trembled. The lid creaked open. Inside lay a simple silver locket, polished to a quiet shine. Tucked beneath it was a folded piece of paper, crinkled from being opened and closed many times. He picked it up gently. His eyes scanned the crooked handwriting. "To Mummy. This is so you don't forget that you are loved. You work too hard, but I see you. I love you. Your daughter." He swallowed hard. The room blurred for just a second, his throat tightening. He closed the locket in his palm, the cool metal pressing into his skin like a ghost of something long lost. When he looked up, the girl was watching him with wide eyes. Why did you write this?" he asked, his voice lower, rougher. "Because sometimes," she said, her words deliberate, "grown-ups forget they are loved. Mummy forgets. I didn't want her to forget." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, thick with something neither of them named. The CEO closed the box carefully, almost reverently, and slid it back toward her. His voice was steadier now, but softer. "Do you know what you've done?" She frowned. "Made a gift?" "No," he said. "You reminded me of something important." The girl tilted her head again, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "What did you forget?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, he turned his gaze to the skyline, swallowing against the storm rising in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt something slip past his armor. And it wasn't anger, or annoyance, or frustration. It was something he feared more than any business risk. It was the stirring of tears. Have you ever received a small gift that meant far more than its price? Something that reminded you were loved? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to know what it was. And if this story is tugging at you already, don't just listen quietly. Subscribe. Be part of these moments with us, because sometimes the stories that change us are the ones we least expect. The jewelry box sat closed now, back in the girl's lap, but its weight lingered in the room like a shadow. The CEO had returned to his chair, posture stiff, eyes fixed on a document he wasn't reading. His hand tapped lightly against the desk, an unconscious rhythm betraying nerves. The girl watched him. She wasn't afraid, not exactly, but her small brow furrowed. Something about him seemed unfinished, like the tall, shiny building he owned. Impressive on the outside, but empty once you stepped in. "You look sad," she said finally. He glanced up sharply, his mask snapping back into place. "I'm not sad. I'm busy." She hugged the jewelry box. "Busy people can be sad too." His jaw tightened. "What makes you think you understand anything about my life?" She blinked at him. "Because you looked at my box like it hurt you." For a moment, silence stretched thin between them. His chest rose and fell once sharply. Then he stood, walking to the window, hands in his pockets. "Child," he said, his voice colder now, "I don't know what you think you've seen, but you should be careful. People don't come into my office and make assumptions." Her little fingers gripped the jewelry box tighter. "I didn't make assumptions. I saw it." He closed his eyes, anger flaring, not at her, but at the truth of it, at the way her words reached a place no one was supposed to touch. There was a knock at the door. His assistant stepped in, holding a clipboard. "Sir, the board is waiting on your call." "Should I?" "Cancel it," he snapped. The assistant blinked, startled. "Cancel? But—" "Cancel," he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. The assistant withdrew quickly, the door clicking shut. The girl's eyes widened. "You cancelled something important?" she asked. His shoulders stiffened. "Yes." "Why?" He turned, staring at her. The answer pressed against his throat, heavy and unwanted. "Because I couldn't leave you sitting here. Because you remind me of something I buried. Because I don't know why I care." "Instead," he muttered, "because it doesn't matter." The girl swung her legs gently, watching him. "My mummy says work always matters too much. She says people forget what's important." His chest tightened. "And what's important?" She didn't hesitate. "Love. Smiles. Coming home." The words cracked against him like thunder in a quiet room. He turned back to the window, hiding his face from her gaze. "You're just a child," he said flatly. "You don't understand the world." She shrugged. "Maybe. But maybe the world doesn't understand me either." Her innocence unsettled him more than accusations ever had. In boardrooms, he fought men with numbers and power. Here, a little girl with ribbons in her hair and a jewelry box in her lap fought him with truths he couldn't dodge. Minutes stretched. He thought about calling her mother, having her escorted out, ending this strange intrusion. His fingers hovered over the intercom button, but he didn't press it. Instead, he asked, "Why bring it here? Why not give it to her at home?" She tilted her head, as though he hadn't been listening earlier. "Because she forgets to smile at home. Work makes her tired. I wanted her to remember before she got tired." "And you think this box will make her remember?" Her answer was simple. "Yes." The CEO exhaled sharply, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Do you know what happens if your mother's boss finds out you're running around here? She could be punished. She could lose her job." The girl's lip trembled for the first time. "Lose her job?" "Yes," he said firmly, pressing the advantage of logic of fear. "This is a company, not a playground." She clutched the jewelry box tighter, shaking her head. "I didn't mean to get her in trouble. I just wanted her to smile again." Tears welled in her eyes. He looked at her, saw the tremble in her chin, and cursed himself silently. Why did he say that? Why did he want to push her away? Because the closer she came, the more dangerous it felt. He sat back down, voice steadier. Go home, child. Your mother will see you later. You've done enough. She shook her head violently. No. She has to get this now. You don't understand. It's very important. He slammed his hand down on the desk. Enough. The sound echoed through the office. The girl flinched, hugging the box so tightly it looked like she was holding on for life itself. The CEO froze, horrified at himself. He had raised his voice at a child. At her. The silence that followed was worse than the shout. Her little eyes, glossy with tears, didn't look away from him. They looked through him. And for the first time in years, he felt shame. The intercom buzzed. Sir, the assistant's voice came softly. Should I send Alana up? The staff mentioned her daughter hasn't come back. The girl's head shot up. Mummy. The CEO hesitated, torn between control and chaos. Finally, he pressed the button. Yes. Send her in. The girl slid off the chair, standing straighter now. She smoothed her dress nervously, the jewelry box still in her hands. Her lips whispered over and over. Please smile, Mummy. Please smile, Mummy. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, forcing his face into its usual unreadable mask. Inside, though, his heart pounded like it hadn't in years. The door opened, and there she was. The mother, Alana, stepped in, wearing a neat blouse, her hair pulled back in a bun, her hands still ink-stained from typing. She froze at the sight. Her daughter standing in the CEO's office, clutching a jewelry box, the CEO himself watching them both like a storm held barely in check. Sir, she whispered, her voice trembling with shock. I'm so sorry. She shouldn't be here. Her daughter turned, eyes shining. Mummy, I brought you something. She ran forward, holding up the jewelry box with both hands. The CEO watched as mother and daughter collided in that small, tender moment. The box between them, tears in the girl's eyes, confusion in the mother's, and something dangerously alive stirring in his own chest. And for the first time, he realized the truth. He wasn't resisting her. He was resisting himself. Do you think the CEO is right to resist, to protect himself from emotions he doesn't want to face? Or is the little girl right, that sometimes love is more important than logic? Let me know what you think. And hey, if you've made it this far, I know the story has you hooked. Don't just sit quietly, subscribe. These are the kinds of stories we share every week, and I don't want you to miss the next moment. The jewelry box was still in Alana's hands, its silver locket glinting under the office light, but she barely noticed. Her eyes darted from her daughter to the CEO, her heart hammering in her chest. Sir, she said again, voice shaking, I am so sorry. I'll take her right now. This won't ever happen again. The CEO leaned back in his chair, arms folded, gaze sharp. His silence stretched long enough to make the air crackle. Alana's stomach twisted. Her daughter clutched her sleeve, tugging. Mummy, wait. Open it. Please. Alana knelt, smoothing her daughter's cheek. Sweetheart, not now. Yes, now. The little girl insisted, thrusting the jewelry box toward her. I made it for you. It's very important. The CEO's eyes narrowed slightly. He said nothing, but his gaze burned with unspoken curiosity. Alana sighed, cheeks flushed. Her hands trembled as she lifted the lid. The locket gleamed back at her, and for a second her breath caught. But it was the note beneath that unraveled her completely. She read it once, then again. The words blurred as tears welled in her eyes. She pressed the paper to her chest, whispering, "Oh, baby." Her daughter smiled through her own tears. I just didn't want you to forget. You smile less now. I thought maybe this would help. Alana pulled her daughter into her arms, hugging her tight. "You are my whole smile," she murmured. "My whole heart." The CEO turned his face toward the window, jaw tight. He had no right to witness this intimacy, this raw truth. But he couldn't look away. When Alana finally rose, she turned to the CEO, nerves twisting her voice. "Sir, please forgive her. She only wanted to give me this. She won't cause trouble again." The CEO stood, buttoning his jacket. "Sit down, Ms. Alana." She blinked. "Sir." "Sit," he repeated, his tone quiet but firm. Her daughter tugged her hand, urging her toward the chair. Reluctantly, Alana sat. The CEO walked slowly back to his desk. His movements were controlled, deliberate, but his mind was chaos. He should dismiss them both. He should reassert the boundaries between boss and employee. Instead, he heard himself say, "Stay. Both of you." Alana shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Sir, with all due respect." "With all due respect," he cut in smoothly. "I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Stay." The little girl swung her legs happily, as if she had won some invisible battle. She placed the jewelry box carefully on the desk, right in front of him. "So you don't forget either," she said matter-of-factly. His brow furrowed. "Don't forget what?" "That you're loved too," she answered. The words landed like a blow. His throat tightened. He forced a smirk, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You're very presumptuous for a child." Alana shot her daughter a warning glance. "Sweetheart." But the CEO lifted a hand, stopping her. "Let her speak. Clearly, she's braver than most adults I know." The girl beamed, but Alana's cheeks flushed. She folded her hands tightly in her lap, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. The CEO turned his gaze on her. "Ms. Alana, how long have you worked here?" 3 years, she replied quickly. "And in that time," he pressed, "you've managed what most count, keeping up with deadlines, long hours, constant pressure. Tell me, what keeps you here?" Alana hesitated. Her daughter looked up at her expectantly. Finally, she answered quietly, "I need this job." "For her." The little girl squeezed her hand proudly. The CEO studied her, his expression unreadable. "And yet, she thinks you've forgotten how to smile." Alana's chest tightened. Her eyes flicked to her daughter, then back to him. "Work is demanding. But I try my best." "She doesn't always see." "She sees more than you think," he countered softly. Silence filled the office. The hum of the city outside seemed far away. The CEO finally walked around the desk and stood before them, his presence overwhelming. "I don't usually allow personal matters into this space," he said. "But something about today feels different." Alana swallowed hard. "Sir, if I've overstepped—" "You haven't," he interrupted. His eyes softened, just slightly, as they rested on her daughter. "She has." He smirked faintly. "But maybe that's what was needed." Alana's brows furrowed, confused. "Needed for what?" The CEO's gaze lingered on the jewelry box. His voice dropped. "For me to remember." The little girl leaned forward eagerly. "Remember what?" He crouched down, meeting her eyes. His voice was quieter, rougher. "That life is more than numbers and meetings. That love doesn't just disappear." Her innocent smile widened. She touched his sleeve gently. "Then you should smile more too." He blinked, startled at the contact, at the simplicity of her command. A lump rose in his throat. Alana watched, her own heart pounding. She had never seen him like this. Not the cold, distant CEO, but a man unraveling in silence. The intercom buzzed again. "Sir, the board insists." "Tell them to wait," he said sharply. Alana's eyes widened. "Sir, you can't." "I can," he said firmly. Then softer to her daughter. "Because some things matter more." The girl grinned, clapping her hands. "See, Mummy? He knows." Alana looked between them, utterly bewildered. "Sir, why are you doing this?" His eyes met hers, steady, unflinching. Because for the first time in years, I don't want to be alone in this office. Her breath caught. The girl yawned suddenly, rubbing her eyes. She leaned against her mother's arm. Can we stay a little longer? I like it here now. Alana stroked her daughter's hair, torn between protest and gratitude. She looked up at the CEO. Sir, she whispered. But he shook his head. For once, let's not rush. Stay. And so they stayed. The minutes that followed weren't filled with contracts or deadlines, but with small things, questions, quiet laughter, and silences that weren't uncomfortable. The girl told stories about her school. The CEO listened, truly listened, asking questions no one expected him to care about. Alana watched, stunned, as her daughter broke through walls she had thought unbreakable. The man she had feared for 3 years, the untouchable CEO, sat before them, leaning in, his face softer, his voice lighter. Something unspoken passed between Alana and him in those moments. Something dangerous. Something undeniable. The office had grown quieter, as though the city beyond the glass walls had dimmed to let something fragile unfold inside. The little girl had curled up on the leather chair, her jewelry box now resting safely on the desk. Her eyelids fluttered as sleep tugged at her, but she fought it, stubborn even in drowsiness. The CEO sat across from her, elbows on his knees, watching her small chest rise and fall with every breath. Something inside him tightened. Children weren't supposed to feel this close, this dangerous. Alana's eyes followed his, soft but weary. She doesn't give up easily, she said quietly. He glanced at her. Clearly. They shared a silence, not tense now, but loaded, like an unspoken question neither dared to ask. Finally, he broke it. Where is her father? Alana stiffened. Her hands folded in her lap. Gone. Gone where? Her lips pressed together. Wherever men go when they stop caring. His chest constricted at the bluntness of her answer. He left you. She nodded, voice steady but thin. When she was 2. Said he wasn't cut out for family life. Walked out with a suitcase and never looked back. Her fingers twisted together unconsciously. I told myself I didn't need him. That we'd be fine without him. And we are. But, her gaze drifted to her daughter. Sometimes she asks questions I can't answer. Why didn't he stay? Wasn't she enough? The CEO swallowed hard. Her words sliced too close to his own scars. He stood abruptly, pacing toward the window. The skyline glowed with city lights, each one a reminder of his empire, and of the emptiness it couldn't fill. Alana watched him, her brows furrowing. And what about you, sir? Why did her little gift shake you so much? He froze. Alana's tone was gentle, not accusatory. You looked at that box like it broke something open inside you. His jaw worked. He wanted to shut her out, to retreat behind business talk, behind figures and contracts. But the silence pressed heavier than words. Finally, he said quietly, I had a daughter once. Alana's breath caught. He didn't turn. His voice was low, each word weighted with years of silence. She was 8. Bright. Fierce. She made me laugh when I didn't want to. And I wasn't there enough. Meetings. Deals. Always telling myself I'd make time tomorrow. And then, he stopped, his hand braced against the glass. His reflection stared back at him, cold, empty. And then one night, I came home late. Too late. There'd been an accident. Car crash. She and her mother didn't make it. Alana's hand flew to her mouth. Her heart twisted painfully. I'm so sorry. He closed his eyes. I never got to say goodbye. I never gave her a box, or a note, or even one last smile. Just nothing. The silence that followed was suffocating. Alana rose slowly, her daughter stirring against the chair, but not waking. She crossed the room, standing a few feet behind him. "You've carried that alone all these years?" He gave a bitter laugh. "What else was I supposed to do? Cry in boardrooms? Share it with shareholders? No. I buried it. Built walls. And the higher I built, the less anyone could see in. Or get out." Alana's eyes softened. "And yet she got through." He turned, startled. She nodded toward her daughter. "In one afternoon, she broke through what you've been building for years." His throat tightened. He looked at the child again. The locket, the note, the quiet trust in her eyes even as she slept. For a moment, he let himself imagine another life. One where he hadn't lost everything. One where laughter filled his home instead of silence. It was unbearable. "You shouldn't have heard this," he said suddenly, straightening his shoulders. His mask slid back into place, though cracks showed. "This isn't your burden." Alana stepped closer, her voice firm. "It's not a burden. It's the truth. And the truth doesn't break us. It connects us." His eyes locked on hers. For the first time, he saw not just an employee, but a woman who understood loss, abandonment, survival. The air between them thickened, unspoken feelings sparking in the silence. Her daughter stirred then, rubbing her eyes. "Mummy," she mumbled sleepily. Alana knelt by her side, brushing curls from her forehead. "I'm here, baby." The CEO's gaze softened unconsciously. He knelt too, on the other side of the chair, his eyes level with the child's. "You have a strong mother," he said quietly. "Stronger than most people I know." The little girl blinked at him, drowsy but smiling. "That's why I wanted her to have the box. So she doesn't forget she's loved." His chest ached. He nodded slowly. "She won't. Not anymore." Alana looked at him then, and for a fleeting second, something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile. Something dangerous. Later, when the child finally drifted into full sleep, Alana stood with her in her arms. "I should take her home," she whispered. He nodded, but as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Alana." She looked back. His jaw tightened. "Thank you. For not running away from my truth." Her eyes glistened. She gave a small nod. "Thank you for sharing it." And then she left, the jewelry box still clutched in her daughter's hand. He stood alone in the vast office, staring at the empty chair where they had been. For the first time in years, the silence felt unbearable. The next morning felt different in the office. Not because of the emails, the meetings, or the endless contracts waiting to be signed, but because the memory of the jewelry box still sat on the CEO's desk. He hadn't moved it. He hadn't been able to. His assistants noticed. They whispered about it in the hall, puzzled by the small, silver box that didn't fit the sharp, sterile decor of his space. But no one dared ask. And when Alana arrived that morning, balancing her bag, her notes, and her daughter's hand, she noticed too. Her daughter gasped softly. "You kept it here?" The CEO looked up from his papers. For a moment, something softened in his face. "Yes." The little girl smiled triumphantly, squeezing her mother's hand. "See, Mummy?" He remembered. Alana's chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind her daughter that this was still her boss, still the untouchable man at the top of the building. But the way he looked at the box, the way he hadn't sent it back, spoke louder than logic. Later that afternoon, an unexpected twist forced them together. The child's school had called. A plumbing issue meant classes were dismissed early. Alana's mother, who sometimes helped, was out of town. That left only one option. Alana stood nervously at the CEO's door, her daughter beside her with wide, hopeful eyes. I need to explain something," Alana began. "The school closed, and I don't have anyone else to watch her right now. If it disrupts work, I'll go home, but—" "Bring her in," the CEO said simply, without looking up from his papers. Alana blinked. Sir, are you sure? Yes. He glanced up briefly, the corner of his mouth twitching. I've survived tougher board meetings. I can handle her. The little girl giggled, darting past her mother into the office. She ran straight to the desk, peering curiously at his neatly stacked files. What do you even do here all day? He raised a brow. Important things. Like what? Decisions. About what? About other decisions. The girl frowned, unimpressed. That sounds boring. Alana groaned softly, mortified. Sweetheart. But the CEO chuckled, surprising them both. You're right. Sometimes it is. The hours that followed blurred into something unusual, almost unreal. Instead of icy silence, the office hummed with small bursts of laughter. The girl sat at his desk, pretending to type like her mother. He indulged her, even showing her how to press the intercom. At one point, she asked innocently, "Do you have toys in here?" He shook his head. Not even one? No. Her eyes widened. That's so sad. He smirked faintly. I suppose it is. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a tiny figurine, a worn plastic horse. She set it on his desk. Now you do. The CEO stared at it. Something lodged in his throat. This is yours. She shrugged. It's a spare. You need it more. Alana's eyes misted. She turned away quickly, pretending to shuffle papers, but her heart clenched at the sight of this powerful man staring at a child's toy, as though it was treasure. As the afternoon stretched, the girl grew restless. Can we eat something? I'm hungry. Alana started to apologize, but the CEO rose abruptly. Come. They followed him down the hall, through a door Alana had never entered. A private dining space, warm wood, softer lighting, a break from the sterile corporate glass. He gestured for them to sit. The staff arrived quickly, bringing dishes more elegant than anything Alana could ever afford. She tried to protest. Sir, this isn't necessary. But he shook his head. It is. The girl's eyes sparkled as plates were set before her. Mummy, look. It's like a feast. Alana smiled softly. Don't get used to it. The CEO watched them across the table, a strange tightness in his chest. He hadn't shared a meal with anyone like this in years. The clatter of forks, the laughter, even the spilled juice. It felt like life, messy and alive, instead of sterile efficiency. Halfway through, the girl asked a question that froze him mid-bite. Alana looked at him then, and for a fleeting second, something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile. Something dangerous. Later, when the child finally drifted into full sleep, Alana stood with her in her arms. I should take her home, she whispered. He nodded, but as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Alana. She looked back. His jaw tightened. Thank you, for not running away from my truth. Her eyes glistened. She gave a small nod. Thank you for sharing it. And then she left, the jewelry box still clutched in her daughter's hand. He stood alone in the vast office, staring at the empty chair where they had been. For the first time in years, the silence felt unbearable. The next morning felt different in the office. Not because of the emails, the meetings, or the endless contracts waiting to be signed, but because the memory of the jewelry box still sat on the CEO's desk. He hadn't moved it. He hadn't been able to. His assistants noticed. They whispered about it in the hall, puzzled by the small, silver box that didn't fit the sharp, sterile decor of his space. But no one dared ask. And when Alana arrived that morning, balancing her bag, her notes, and her daughter's hand, she noticed too. Her daughter gasped softly. You kept it here? The CEO looked up from his papers. For a moment, something softened in his face. Yes. The little girl smiled triumphantly, squeezing her mother's hand. See, Mummy? He remembered. Alana's chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind her daughter that this was still her boss, still the untouchable man at the top of the building. But the way he looked at the box, the way he hadn't sent it back, spoke louder than logic. Later that afternoon, an unexpected twist forced them together. The child's school had called. A plumbing issue meant classes were dismissed early. Alana's mother, who sometimes helped, was out of town. That left only one option. Alana stood nervously at the CEO's door, her daughter beside her with wide, hopeful eyes. I need to explain something, Alana began. The school closed, and I don't have anyone else to watch her right now. If it disrupts work, I'll go home, but… Bring her in, the CEO said simply, without looking up from his papers. Alana blinked. Sir, are you sure? Yes. He glanced up briefly, the corner of his mouth twitching. I've survived tougher board meetings. I can handle her. The little girl giggled, darting past her mother into the office. She ran straight to the desk, peering curiously at his neatly stacked files. What do you even do here all day? He raised a brow. Important things. Like what? Decisions. About what? About other decisions. The girl frowned, unimpressed. That sounds boring. Alana groaned softly, mortified. Sweetheart. But the CEO chuckled, surprising them both. You're right. Sometimes it is. The hours that followed blurred into something unusual, almost unreal. Instead of icy silence, the office hummed with small bursts of laughter. The girl sat at his desk, pretending to type like her mother. He indulged her, even showing her how to press the intercom. At one point, she asked innocently, Do you have toys in here? He shook his head. Not even one. No. Her eyes widened. That's so sad. He smirked faintly. I suppose it is. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a tiny figurine, a worn plastic horse. She set it on his desk. Now you do. The CEO stared at it. Something lodged in his throat. This is yours. She shrugged. It's a spare. You need it more. Alana's eyes misted. She turned away quickly, pretending to shuffle papers, but her heart clenched at the sight of this powerful man staring at a child's toy as though it was treasure. As the afternoon stretched, the girl grew restless. Can we eat something? I'm hungry. Alana started to apologize, but the CEO rose abruptly. Come. They followed him down the hall, through a door Alana had never entered. A private dining space, warm wood, softer lighting, a break from the sterile corporate glass. He gestured for them to sit. The staff arrived quickly, bringing dishes more elegant than anything Alana could ever afford. She tried to protest. Sir, this isn't necessary. But he shook his head. It is. The girl's eyes sparkled as plates were set before her. Mummy, look. It's like a feast. Alana smiled softly. Don't get used to it. The CEO watched them across the table, a strange tightness in his chest. He hadn't shared a meal with anyone like this in years. The clatter of forks, the laughter, even the spilled juice. It felt like life, messy and alive, instead of sterile efficiency. Halfway through, the girl asked a question that froze him mid-bite. Do you eat alone every day? He set down his fork, glancing at Alana. Her eyes widened, silently begging her daughter to stop. But the child pressed on. Because that's really lonely. The CEO cleared his throat. Yes, I usually do. The girl tilted her head. You don't have to, you know. You could eat with us. Alana almost dropped her glass. Sweetheart. But the CEO's lips curved into something dangerously close to a smile. Maybe one day I will. After lunch, they returned to the office, the girl chattering happily, her mother flustered and flushed. The CEO pretended to work, but his eyes kept straying to them. To Alana's laugh, quiet and rare. To the way she brushed curls from her daughter's face. At one point, their hands brushed as they both reached to take a folder from the desk. The touch lingered a second too long. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile, terrifying, undeniable. Alana pulled back quickly, her cheeks warm. "Sorry." He didn't reply. But his gaze lingered, steady, until she turned away. Evening fell. The girl had fallen asleep again on the leather chair, curled under her mother's jacket. The office was dim now, city lights glowing through the glass walls. Alana gathered her things, careful not to wake her daughter. "We should go," she whispered. The CEO stood, hands in his pockets. "She's welcome here. Both of you are." Alana froze. "Sir, that's not professional." His jaw tightened. "Neither is what happened yesterday. Or today. And yet, I can't bring myself to regret it." Her heart pounded. "Why are you saying this?" He looked at her, his eyes raw, stripped of their usual armor. "Because for the first time in years, I don't feel alone." Her breath caught. She wanted to reply, to deny, to run. But her daughter stirred, murmuring in her sleep, and the moments slipped away. They left together, the jewelry box tucked carefully under the child's arm. The CEO stood at the window long after they were gone, staring at the city. The little figurine, the plastic horse, still sat on his desk. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't move it. The week that followed felt different. For the first time in years, the CEO's office wasn't just a place of endless signatures and silence. There was laughter sometimes, Alana's daughter's light voice drifting through, her small hands leaving sticky fingerprints on the corners of his desk. He pretended not to notice, though his assistant nearly fainted at the sight. At night, when the building emptied, Alana would still be there, typing late, and sometimes he would linger too. Not because of the work, but because he had begun to crave those fleeting conversations they shared when no one else was around. For a man who had lived in glass walls for so long, their presence felt like warmth slipping through the cracks. But warmth is fragile, and the colder the walls, the easier they shatter. It began with a headline. CEO's secret affair with staff member? Mystery woman and daughter spotted leaving late-night meeting. The photograph was grainy, taken from across the street. It showed Alana carrying her sleeping child, the CEO walking beside them. It wasn't scandalous, not really. But gossip never needed truth to catch fire. By morning, the whispers were everywhere. In the elevators, in the break rooms, even in the boardroom where Alana delivered coffee. "Did you hear?" someone whispered. "Single mother, right? Figures. He's her boss. What's she after, a promotion?" Alana heard every word. Her cheeks burned as she walked the hall, keeping her head down, clutching her notepad like a shield. That afternoon, she was called into his office. He stood at the window, jaw tight, the headlines still open on his tablet. Alana's heart pounded. "Sir, This shouldn't have happened," he cut in, his voice sharper than she'd ever heard. Her breath caught. "What shouldn't have happened?" "This." He gestured between them, his hands trembling slightly. "The lunches. The late nights. Letting her." He broke off, unable to say your daughter. "It was a mistake." Alana's eyes burned. "A mistake?" His gaze was cold now, but beneath it she caught the flicker of conflict. "I have shareholders. A company. I can't risk." "So what am I?" she snapped. "An inconvenience. A rumor you can't afford." He flinched, but didn't answer. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Her hands shook as she spoke again, voice breaking. "Do you know what that jewelry box meant? She gave you something precious. And you kept it. Don't you dare call that a mistake." For a moment, the mask slipped. Pain crossed his face, raw and human. But then he forced it back, standing straighter, colder. "This is over." Alana walked out without another word, tears threatening to spill. She didn't see the way his hands clenched at his sides the moment the door closed, or how he sat heavily at his desk, staring at the plastic horse on the corner. He wanted to smash it, to throw it away, but he couldn't. The following days were unbearable. Alana avoided his office unless absolutely necessary. Her daughter noticed. "Mummy, why don't we go see him anymore?" the little girl asked one night, clutching the jewelry box in her lap. Alana swallowed hard. Because sometimes grown-ups stop being friends. Her daughter frowned. "But he liked the horse. And he laughed with us. He's lonely, Mummy." "I saw it." Tears pricked Alana's eyes. "Sweetheart, not everything we see is meant for us to fix." But deep down, she knew the girl was right. He was lonely. And she had been, for so long too. Meanwhile, in the high-rise office, the CEO threw himself back into work. Meetings, contracts, numbers. Anything to drown out the emptiness that gnawed at him. But every time he reached for a pen, he saw her hand brushing his. Every time he sat at the dining table alone, he remembered the girl's small voice asking, "Do you eat alone every day?" And every night, when the office finally went dark, his eyes drifted to the jewelry box on his desk, the plastic horse standing beside it like silent accusations. The breaking point came one evening when Alana stayed late, finishing a report. She didn't realize he was still there until his voice broke the silence. "Why are you still here?" She froze, the sound of his voice like a wound reopening. Slowly she turned. "Because I have to be. Rent doesn't pay itself." He flinched at her tone. "Alana, don't." Her voice cracked, sharper than she intended. "Don't you dare say my name like you care. You made it clear what I am to you, a mistake. Let's keep it that way." The words sliced through him, leaving him pale and shaken. But he forced a nod, his throat tight. "Fine." She gathered her things, but as she passed the desk, her daughter's toy caught her eye. The horse still stood there untouched. She hesitated, her chest aching, then looked at him. "Why keep it, if all of this means nothing to you?" His lips parted, but no sound came. His eyes shone with something unspoken, regret, longing, torment. But the words stayed trapped. Alana shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "Coward." And she left. That night, the CEO sat in the dark office long after she was gone, the city lights glowing cold beyond the glass. He reached for the horse, cradling it in his palm. For the first time in years, he let himself cry. Silent, shattering sobs that no one would ever know about. Because she was right. He was a coward. Meanwhile, at home, Alana tucked her daughter into bed. The girl clutched the jewelry box, whispering, "But he was our friend." Alana kissed her forehead. "Sometimes people don't stay." Her daughter's eyes filled with tears. But maybe he just forgot how to stay. Alana broke then, turning away so her daughter wouldn't see her own tears. For both of them, the bond they had started to build, the fragile dream of family, of love, of belonging, was shattered. And neither knew if it could ever be pieced back together. What would you have done in Alana's place? Walked away to protect your dignity, or fought for the chance that love was hiding beneath his fear? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And while you're thinking about it, don't forget, stories like these dig deep into the heart. If you want to keep walking through these emotional journeys with us, make sure you're subscribed. It really helps us keep telling them. Nights were always quiet in the CEO's penthouse, but lately the silence had grown unbearable. He stood at the window overlooking the city, lights glittering like stars trapped in glass towers. It should have made him feel powerful. Instead, it made him feel like a prisoner, caged in steel and success. The jewelry box sat on the table behind him, the plastic horse standing guard beside it. He hadn't been able to put them away. Sometimes he told himself he kept them out of guilt. Other times he admitted the truth, They were the only proof that, for a fleeting moment, someone had seen him. Not the CEO, not the empire, but him. And he had thrown it away. Across the city, Alana sat at the small kitchen table, bills spread out like storm clouds. Her daughter was asleep in the next room, the faint glow of a nightlight spilling through the cracked door. Alana pressed her hands to her face, exhaustion pulling at her bones. But beneath the fatigue was a deeper ache, the echo of words she couldn't forget. "This is over." She had believed him when he said it. But the way he'd looked at her, the pain in his eyes, it haunted her. It was the look of a man tearing himself apart. And yet, he had chosen pride over them. She whispered to herself, fierce though her voice trembled, "You're not going to break me again." But when she looked at her daughter's sleeping face, innocence framed by braids and soft breaths, her resolve cracked. Because her daughter hadn't asked for this pain. She had simply wanted to give her mummy a gift. The next morning, the CEO sat in his boardroom surrounded by people speaking numbers, percentages, strategies. He heard none of it. His mind wandered back to a small voice asking, "Do you eat alone every day?" He excused himself abruptly, leaving the room stunned. In his office, he loosened his tie and sat heavily, gripping the jewelry box. Inside, the soft lining still carried the faintest trace of lavender, Alana's scent. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, the memory of her laughter filled the air. Coward, she had called him. The word sliced deeper than any business failure ever could. He had built an empire, conquered markets, survived losses, but the judgment of a woman who mattered stripped him bare. Alana, meanwhile, was avoiding the building as much as she could. She timed her shifts to minimize contact, slipped out early when she could, and refused to look at his office door. But her daughter noticed the change. One evening, as Alana tucked her in, the girl whispered, "Mummy, did I do something wrong? Is that why he doesn't see us anymore?" Alana froze, heart splitting. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why is he gone?" Alana blinked back tears. "Because sometimes people get scared, and they run away." Her daughter frowned. "But if he's scared, shouldn't we help him be brave?" Alana kissed her forehead. "Sometimes, bravery has to come from them." Still, as she lay awake later, the words echoed in her head. Shouldn't we help him be brave? Days turned into a week. The distance grew unbearable. The CEO tried to bury himself in work, but each night he returned to the same silence, the same reminders. He caught himself almost calling her name once, when dictating a memo. He even stopped by the floor where her department worked, though he told himself it was by chance. He never saw her. She avoided him too carefully. Finally, one night, he couldn't take it anymore. He poured himself a drink, sat at the window, and spoke aloud into the emptiness. "I don't want to be alone anymore." The words startled him. They weren't for shareholders, weren't for speeches, weren't for appearances. They were raw, vulnerable, a confession to no one. Or maybe to her, wherever she was. Alana's breaking point came on a rainy Friday. She had just finished her shift, exhausted, when her daughter tugged her sleeve. "Mummy, can we stop by his office? Just to say hi." Her chest tightened. "Sweetheart, no. It's not like that anymore. But I miss him." Alana crouched, brushing damp curls from her daughter's forehead. "I know, baby. But sometimes missing someone doesn't mean they're meant to stay." Her daughter bit her lip, then whispered something that cracked Alana wide open. "But what if he's missing us too?" Alana pulled her close, holding her as rain tapped against the umbrella. She didn't answer, because deep down, she feared her daughter was right. The weekend came. Rain turned to clear skies, and the city bustled as always. But inside their hearts, storms brewed. The CEO sat in his office late into Saturday, unable to leave. He picked up his phone a dozen times, each time putting it down. The number was burned into his memory, but the courage wasn't there. Finally, he whispered, "If I lose them forever, it's because I stayed silent." His hand trembled as he dialed. Meanwhile, Alana was at home, folding laundry while her daughter colored at the table. The phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. His name. Her heart leapt and sank all at once. She let it ring, breath caught in her throat. But her daughter noticed. "Mummy, who is it?" Alana swallowed. "No one." But her daughter, sharp and unyielding, peered at the screen. Her eyes lit up. "It's him." Alana silenced the call, setting the phone face down. Her daughter's voice wavered. "Why didn't you answer?" Alana's hands trembled as she folded another shirt. "Because sometimes answering means getting hurt again." Her daughter frowned. "But what if not answering hurts more?" That night, neither of them slept. The CEO stared at the phone, devastated by her silence. "She hates me," he whispered. "And maybe she should." Alana lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the call she hadn't answered. "Maybe I was a coward too," she whispered. Two souls, both aching, both waiting for the other to move first. By Sunday morning, the choice had crystallized for both of them. For him, it was unbearable silence. For her, it was her daughter's innocent hope. And so, separately, they made decisions that would collide. He decided he could no longer live behind pride. She decided she could no longer let fear rule her. Late Sunday afternoon, Alana found herself standing outside the glass building, her daughter holding her hand. She had told herself it was just to drop off some paperwork she'd forgotten. But her daughter's knowing smile betrayed the truth. At the same time, the CEO was stepping into the lobby, tie loosened, face lined with sleepless nights. Their eyes met across the space. The world stilled. She almost turned away. He almost walked past. But then, her daughter let go of her hand and ran forward, straight to him. "You called us," she said simply, her voice innocent and certain. His chest tightened. He knelt, eyes burning. "Yes, I did." Alana stood frozen, heart pounding. The moment stretched, raw, fragile, everything balanced on a knife's edge. And then he lifted his gaze to her, voice low and breaking. "I don't want to be a coward anymore. Have you ever let pride or fear stop you from saying what your heart really wanted? Did you regret it later? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you faced your choice. And if this story is tugging at your own heartstrings, make sure you're subscribed. Because stories like this don't just end. They remind us of the choices we all have to make in love. The lobby was quiet, unusually so for a Sunday. The hum of lights above, the faint echo of shoes against marble. Every sound felt magnified. Alana stood near the glass doors, frozen between running away and stepping forward. Her daughter's hand no longer anchored her. The girl had dashed across the polished floor, straight into the arms of the man she had missed. The CEO knelt, his tall frame folded in on itself, his eyes shining with something rare and unguarded. He whispered, "I called because I couldn't stop thinking about you. About both of you." The child tilted her head, simple in her truth. "So don't stop." Alana's breath caught. Children had a way of stripping things bare, of naming what adults danced around. She felt heat rise behind her eyes. She wanted to turn, to flee, to protect her already bruised heart. But she couldn't move. When his gaze lifted to hers, the world stopped. His voice was low, rough around the edges, but clear. "I don't want to eat alone anymore." The words hit her like a tide, washing away every barrier she had tried to rebuild. They were the very words her daughter had said, the question she herself had tucked away in her chest. And now, spoken by him, they felt like an offering. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, Alana walked forward, each step a battle between pride and hope. When she reached them, she gently touched her daughter's shoulder. "Sweetheart, wait outside for a moment." Her daughter looked from one to the other, sensing the gravity in the air. She nodded solemnly, then skipped toward the seating area, humming softly to herself. Now, it was just the two of them. Alana folded her arms, though it was more to hold herself together than to keep him out. "You can't just say that and expect everything to be fine." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't expect it to be fine. I only expect it to be honest." Her jaw tightened. "Honest? You called us a mistake." Pain flickered across his face. "Because I was scared. I've built everything by being untouchable, by never letting anyone close enough to destroy me. And then he broke off, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't know how to handle it. I still don't. But I know I can't lose it." Her chest ached. She wanted to believe him, but the wound was still raw. "Words are easy. Do you have any idea what it cost me to walk away? To explain to her why you weren't there anymore?" His eyes shone. "Yes. Because I walked away from myself too. And I can't do it again." They stood in silence, the weight of truth pressing down. Then slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. He opened his palm. The plastic horse. Her breath hitched. "I kept it," he said softly, "because it reminded me what mattered. Not the meetings, not the headlines. Just this. Just you. Just her." Her arms dropped to her sides. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to know. I didn't throw it away. I didn't throw you away. I'm here, begging you not to let me be the coward I was." Her eyes blurred with tears. "And if you break her heart again?" His jaw tightened, but his voice was steady. "Then I'll never forgive myself. But I swear I won't. She deserves better. You both do." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She turned slightly, trying to hide her face, but he stepped closer. Not too close, just enough for her to feel his presence. "Alana," he whispered, "don't run from this. Please." She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "Do you know how many nights I told myself you weren't worth it? That I'd be a fool to even consider letting you back in?" His lips curved faintly, sad but hopeful. "And yet you're here." Her eyes snapped to his, fire and vulnerability colliding. "Because she wanted to see you. Not me. Then let me prove I want both." At that moment, her daughter skipped back toward them, clutching the jewelry box. She looked up at them, then placed it carefully in her mother's hands. "Mummy, maybe you should give it to him now. For real this time." Alana froze, trembling. The box felt heavier than it ever had before, as though it carried not just memories but choices. Her daughter added, with the disarming wisdom only children carried, "Because gifts aren't mistakes." The CEO's throat worked as he swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the box. Alana's hands shook. Slowly, painfully, she opened it. Inside lay the small necklace her daughter had chosen weeks ago, simple but beautiful. Her daughter smiled. "It's for you. So you don't forget us." The CEO's eyes filled, his composure fracturing. He took the box with reverence, as though it were the most precious thing he had ever held. "I won't," he whispered, voice breaking. "I swear I won't." The three of them stood there in the quiet lobby, the city alive beyond the glass. For the first time, the space didn't feel cold or distant. It felt like possibility. Alana exhaled shakily. "I don't know if I can trust you yet." "I don't blame you," he admitted. "But let me earn it. Not with promises. With presence. With showing up. For you. For her." Her daughter looked between them, her smile bright and sure. "So, does this mean we can have dinner together again?" The CEO chuckled softly, wiping at his eyes. "Yes. Dinner. Lunch. Breakfast, if you'll let me." Alana couldn't help it. Her lips curved, faint but real. Slow down. But don't shut me out, he countered gently. Her gaze softened. I won't. Not if you mean it. I've never meant anything more. That evening, for the first time, the three of them sat at a table that wasn't divided by glass or status. A simple diner near Alana's apartment. The food wasn't elegant, the chairs squeaked, and the neon lights flickered. But it was perfect. The little girl laughed between bites of pancakes, syrup smeared on her cheeks. The CEO leaned back, watching her with awe, as though he'd been handed a second chance at life. Alana caught his gaze once, and though she looked away quickly, warmth lingered in her chest. When the bill came, Alana reached for it automatically, but he shook his head. This one's mine, and so are the next 100. She rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips. We'll see. Later, as they walked out into the night, the city lights glowing above, the little girl skipped ahead, humming. Alana and the CEO walked side by side, silent stretching. But this time, it was comfortable. Finally, he spoke. I can't promise I won't stumble. I'm not perfect. But I can promise this. I'll never walk away again. She glanced at him, studying his face, the raw honesty in his eyes. After a long pause, she whispered, That's all I needed to hear. The little girl turned, running back to grab both their hands. She held them together, giggling. See? I told you we'd help him be brave. Tears slipped down Alana's cheeks, but she laughed through them. The CEO squeezed their hands, his own eyes wet. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. For the first time, she felt chosen. And for the first time, their daughter felt whole. The jewelry box had done its job. The man who once ate alone now shared pancakes in a noisy diner. The woman who once carried silence now carried hope. And the little girl who once asked strangers to deliver a gift had given her mummy something far greater. Love. What do you think? Was it fate, courage, or the innocence of a child that brought them together at last? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this ending warmed your heart, don't forget to subscribe. There are more stories waiting, and you won't want to miss the next one.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you would surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.